The Young Parliamentarians Forum, YPF, condemn in totality the loss of lives and property, breakdown of law and order across the country. The past few days have been the toughest time in our democracy, especially the horrendous loss of lives of unarmed protesters at Lucky Toll Gate on Tuesday, the 20th of October 2020. We have observed unpleasant developments across major cities in Nigeria, with scores of young people killed and many injured as a result of the ongoing NSAS peaceful protest led by young people. These extrajudicial killings and violence are highly condemnable and unacceptable. We have observed with dismay the recruitment and deployment of hoodlums and thugs to disrupt and hijack the protest by unpatriotic Nigerians. These have occasioned the death of innocent citizens, the destruction of government and private property, and the disruption of economic activities in some cities around the country. Our sincere sympathy goes to the families of the people who lost their lives in the process, and we pray the Almighty consoles them in this moment of grief. We urge the federal government to ensure adequate and immediate compensation to the victims of police brutality, banditry, and terrorism. As a matter of urgency, the Nigerian Army should identify the armed men in military uniform who attacked innocent protesters at the Lekki Toll Gate in Lagos on October 20th, 2020. We also urge the Nigerian Police Force to identify officers who attacked peaceful protesters in cities across the states. Similarly, the sponsors of the human rights violations and violence perpetrated by thugs across the Federation must be made to face the full wrath of the law. We urge the federal government to accede to the demands of the youth and ensure comprehensive reforms in the security sector. As young parliamentarians, we are committed to the yearnings of Nigerian youths, and to this end, we will be taking all necessary actions within our purview to ensure justice and accountability. In view of the foregoing, the Young Parliamentarians Forum of the 9th Assembly wishes to submit as follows. 1. The reconvening of the National Assembly. The National Assembly should, as a matter of urgency, reconvene plenary for an emergency session to discuss alleged killings of peaceful protesters. In addition, an investigative public hearing on the loss of lives and human rights violations resulting from police brutality is highly recommended. On national security, the forum calls for comprehensive police reform. The epicenter of the current protest is the acts of police brutality by the police and its proscribed tactical unit, SAS. The federal government must demonstrate a genuine commitment to reforming the police and protection of youth and citizens from police brutality, which has resulted in several avoidable deaths. Immediate inauguration of the Nigerian Police Council and the constitution of the Governing Council of the National Human Rights Commission, which should include youth representation. On education, we commend the effort of the leadership of the National Assembly towards resolving the lingering ASU strike and further call on the federal government to take concrete steps to end the incessant strikes by ASU. This should include sustained dialogues and negotiations to accede to the demands of ASU to enable students to go back to school. The government should consider one-year tuition fees palliative as compensation to the students who have been disadvantaged due to the prolonged strike action. Number 4, national orientation and youth development. We call on the federal government to revamp and put into use all the 11 citizenship and leadership training centers across the country and establish new ones in the states where there is none. We call on the federal government to revamp and establish school acquisition and vocational training centers across the Federation. We call on the federal government to strengthen its social security net to address the peculiar needs of the youth, women, aged, and persons living with disabilities. We call on the federal government to improve access of young persons and women to government and decision-making process. Also, the government should empower youth and women through special social development and mentorship programs. There is the need for enlightenment programs by agencies such as National Orientation Agency to educate and enlighten the general public on the dangers of drug abuse, sexual harassment, and gender-based violence. In conclusion, we note that the current situation begs for dialogue, justice, and reconciliation. We implore the federal government to provide leadership in national reconciliation, peace, and justice through inclusive and transparent dialogues with citizens and ensure individuals and institutions who violate constitutionally guaranteed rights are held to account. We urge the protesters to remain law-abiding citizens and peaceful. The YPF wish to strongly call on the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari, to address the nation as a matter of urgency. God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.